So welcome to the Tuesday at 10 Zoom meeting, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Uh, just to give you some updates on what's going with NAR and um, uh, the lawsuits. There are all kinds of motions being filed by different people, by plaintiffs and defendants. And um, uh, so in this lawsuit that's in Chicago, there's been motions filed by the defendants and then counter motions filed by the plaintiffs. And so it's going to be interesting to see what shakes out. None of this is in our control. So regardless of what you read out there in terms of these legal battles are being fought, uh, they're in the hands of lawyers uh, and juries or judges, and primarily to enrich the pockets of the lawyers. So they're the ones that stand to benefit the most from these lawsuits. The end consumer probably will not benefit in the long run, irregardless of what happens. Um, but particularly if they decouple buyer commissions and prevent the seller from paying a buyer commission. I think you'll find that well, first of all, sellers won't save any money, and I think buyers will pay more, and so the end result will be it's more expensive to buy and sell homes than it was in the past. But that's not unusual when the government gets involved with trying to regulate an industry um, through legal channels. Um, I heard an interesting new term yesterday called lawfare, and it's a combination of law and warfare. And the article was about how the law has become a way of waging war, not with guns and bullets, but with accusations and public opinion and et cetera. So sometimes even the accusation can do the damage. And so even if the lawsuit is not uh, successful, a lot of times, or the legal action is not successful, a lot of times it implants in people's minds doubt about the whole situation. So as real estate agents and independent business people, the only thing we can control is our own personal business. We can't control the lawsuits. We're not lawyers that are litigating these things. And so there's nothing we can do to affect that. The best thing that we can do is keep ourselves informed so that we can answer questions and to be ready to answer those questions that come up when people ask us, hey, what's all these lawsuits about, and et cetera. And I've had numerous people ask me about them. I don't know if you have had those circumstances or not, but I've had a lot of people ask about these lawsuits and what do they mean, and so you just need to be prepared with an answer of how that all works, um, and until something changes, we just need to be prepared to continue to do business as we've been doing it, but to really explain what's going on. I think one of the biggest takeaways from all of this is that people genuinely don't understand how real estate works and how the fees work and et cetera. So the more transparent that we can be in our business, I think the better that we will be. Uh, Although it's interesting, lawyers are probably the least transparent group of people out there in terms of what they charge you and how they charge you. Uh, and it's interesting that they're the ones that are litigating this basically against realtors and the real estate profession. So it's just kind of interesting. Uh, Personally, I think we should get paid like lawyers do, based on what we do. And we should get paid for everything we do, whether we're successful selling a house or buying a house or whatever. We should get paid for what we do. So who knows? Maybe eventually that will be our opportunity to bill our services as attorneys do, instead of doing it the way we do now, which is basically doing a lot of work for free. So at any rate, that's the update on NAR and IAR and MIBOR. Just a couple of additional things. NAR is now providing the ABR coursework, which is accredited buyer's representative. That coursework is now being provided by NAR free at no cost. So you could get your ABR designation free from NAR. So you might want to investigate that. And I'm sure that's available as an online self-paced course to take.
What is an ABI?
Huh?
What is
ABR.
ABI?
ABR.
What?
Accredited Buyer's Representative, I believe, is what that stands for. So just so that you know that. News from Realty World itself. You probably got the email that I got, which is that the international conference for Realty World has been canceled.
Yeah.
And so that was a surprise to me. And I have non-refundable tickets, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with those. If I can change those to another city, because I really don't want to fly out to California for a week, for 2 or 3 days, just for fun. I'd probably do it rather than lose the money, but hopefully I can change those to another destination that I'd like to go to. But so anyhow, that's all the news there. Question and answers from you before we go into the listing agreement. No questions?
Can you say the designation again? BR what?
Oh, the designation is ABR, Accredited Buyer's Representative.
Okay.
And that could be something that's important in the future for representing buyers. If buyers are going to have to pay for representation, they may want to see that their representative that they're hiring is accredited. So could be a useful designation to have. So at any rate, just so that you know. Any other questions? Okay, what I'm going to do here, let me share my screen. Okay, you should now be looking at my screen, and I'm going to make this a little bigger. And what you're seeing is the listing contract, exclusive right to sell. Notice, and we're going to go line by line through this, so we may not get through this agreement today. So if we don't, then we'll go part 2. Now, a couple things about this. This is a listing contract. Note up here it says contract. A lot of times we call it a listing agreement. An agreement sounds less intimidating than a contract does. So generally, when we want someone to sign something, we call it an agreement. When we want to enforce it, we call it a contract. Okay, but it really is a contract. It's titled a contract, and it is a contract as far as legal is concerned. This is a contract that we are allowed to fill out as a member of the Indiana Association of Realtors without being a lawyer. So we are not licensed to practice law. And that means that this contract was put together by lawyers with blank sections that we're allowed to fill in. We are not allowed to change anything else in the purchase agreement. So to make strikeouts in here or change anything other than what goes in these blanks is not allowed. If we did that, now we're guilty of practicing law without a license, because this was prepared by lawyers, and we only have authorization to use the blanks, not to change anything in the purchase agreement. So be very careful if somebody wants you to try to change something in the purchase agreement. You can't do it. Second thing, when you're filling out a purchase agreement, if you hover over a field that you want to fill in, notice that I've hovered over this first field, and it says listing broker firm name. So it tells you what goes in a blank: seller information, seller 1 and 2 names. So if you hover over those fields, it tells you what needs to go in there. So it starts out in consideration of services to be performed by. This is the real estate brokerage, not your name. This is Realty World. Indy goes in here, okay? That goes in there, okay? Then down below, your first full name of first seller, landlord, or sublord. This is where the seller's names go, okay? So so there's my name. And we'll say that there's a Nancy test as well. Okay. And that comes out right here. All right. You don't have to put your name in here, because this is the seller that you're doing this work for. So the contract is between Realty World Indy and the seller who we're doing the work for. And so their names go in here. So if I were to change this a little bit, okay, that's what goes in there. Seller 1 name, seller 2 name goes in there. Now, if it happens to be a LLC or something like that, you could use this top line instead of that where it has 2 names. You could put up here the LLC. Okay. So if I were to type, I could put in here okay, so if this is a company, you want to put it in there. If it's the seller, first and last name, you put them in there. So it's contract in consideration of services to be formed by Realty World Indy, hereinafter referred to as the broker, for either a company or these sellers. Okay, seller appoints broker as seller's broker with irrevocable and exclusive right to sell, exchange, option, or lease the real property known as. Okay, so and again, if you hover over this, it tells you, okay, they're asking for the property street address. So you're going to put in the street address right here, and let me get the street address of the property I'm using. Okay, 10373. Okay, so 10373, whatever. Lakeland. 10373 Lakeland. Okay, so it's asking for the name or the street name in here. So that's what goes in there. All right, and then it asks you what township it's in. So you type in the township name, and then you put what county it's in. And then you put what city it's in. Okay, and then you put in the zip code. And then you put in a legal description. Now, where do you get the legal description for a property? Let me show you. You go to the BLC and you can look up a property, and if it's ever been listed, it's going to pop up. And then you can just go in under additional info and you can click on the property report, and it will pull up the property report for that listing. So right here's the property report for that listing, and it shows all kinds of information about it. And if you scroll down the page to the legal description right here, it gives you the legal description for this property. So rather than type all of this, what I do is I just go in here and highlight it and copy it, Command C, copy it. Then I go back to my listing agreement and I just paste it, Command V. And I've got the legal description in there. So this is the actual description of the property that the tax record shows. And so you want that whole description in there. You can see it has acreage, section, township, range, the name of the neighborhood, what section of the neighborhood, and what the lot number is. Now, if it's not in a platted neighborhood, you're going to have all other kinds of descriptions in there, but you want to put in whatever that legal description is, because that legally describes this property. And that's the property that we're going to list and sell. So that's where you get that information. Now, if the property's never been listed before, then just go into the CRS system, our tax record system, and look it up that way. You can look up any property, whether it's been listed or not. You can get that same property card and that same information, even if it's not ever been listed. But when you're listing a property, you always want to pull it up and see if it's ever been listed before. Okay, so then this contract begins on. Okay, so you have to put a date in here, and this is a calendar date. Okay, if you were writing something in here, you hit space and it turns green. So any of these fields like this that require like a calendar input, you can hit a space and it allows you to type in there. But you want to put your start date of your listing contract in here, and you can pick it right off the calendar. And this is when your listing starts, and it expires at midnight on the expiration date. Okay. Then we have to put the list price in here. And again, this is looking for a number. Okay. So let's say that we're listing this at $295,000. You just type in 295 and it spells that out for you. So if you put this part in, it puts that part in for you. So this is your price. For this to be a legal contract, there has to be a price in there. Otherwise, it's not a legal contract. So the contract has to have a beginning and ending date, and it has to have a price, and essentially it has to be properly filled out to be a legal contract. So every box and every blank, you should try to put something in, and that's the best way to fill out a purchase agreement. Possession, this is when you can either put a date in there, or you can space and turn it green and type in there at closing, or you can type whatever you want in there. But you type in, when seller is giving possession. So you put in there whenever they're giving possession. If it's a date, put a date in there. If it's a at closing, just space, and then you can type free form in there. The next part of this, seller represents that seller is or is not delinquent on any loans which would constitute a lien on the property. So they have to say yes or no, whether they are or not. So hopefully they're not. So they would check that, but you have to ask them that question. Seller represents that the total loans affecting the property. Now, this is something different. This is saying, okay, the loan total either does or does not exceed the list price and costs of the sale. So in other words, are they upside down in this property? In other words, do they owe more than the price they can get out of the property, along with the commissions and closing costs that they will incur? Yes or no? Again, hopefully the answer to that is that they do not exceed the list price and cost of the sale. It also, seller is putting here, seller is not a party to any bankruptcy proceeding. So they're basically verifying that they haven't filed bankruptcy at this point. Also, seller has the capacity to convey the property by a general warranty deed or by some other deed. And if there's not another deed, if they're going to do it by general warranty deed, which is 90% of the time, then what you're going to do is you're going to type in here, not applicable for anything else. So even though there's a blank there that you're not going to use, put something in there anyhow, which is not applicable. Did the seller acquire ownership of the property at a tax sale, sheriff's sale, or any judicial sale, or mortgage foreclosure proceeding? So they're asking here, was this a foreclosure proceeding that they acquired this property, or did they buy it through a tax sale or through a sheriff's sale at auction, that type of thing? They have to just say yes or no. So one of these boxes is going to get checked, either yes or no. Okay, probably no in most cases. Then this one is in bold. Okay, seller is or is not a foreign person, individual or entity. So they have to say, first of all, are they a foreign person? Okay, they are or they aren't. Okay, seller is or is not subject to the Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act. And there's an IRS publication here that's referenced. So if the seller is a foreign person and they're not sure whether or not they're subject to the Foreign Investment Real Property Tax Act, you can refer them to this publication right here, and it gives the link on the government website for that. It's not your job or responsibility to try to figure that out. It's their job and responsibility, but you want to make sure that they do that. So if they're not subject, you check not subject. If they are subject, you check is subject. This is a very important part of the of the listing contract, because it could mean repercussions to the buyer of the property later on. So it's important that these things be checked off. Okay, terms of sale. The property may be sold for cash in US dollars or any of the following methods indicated below. Okay, so typically we check a conventional mortgage, insured conventional. And again, we want to explain what a conventional mortgage is. We want to explain what a insured conventional mortgage is. Assumption of existing mortgage balance. Okay, we could ask the seller, is your mortgage assumable? And if their mortgage is assumable, you could check this right here. If it's not assumable, then you can't check that. Will they take a conditional sales contract? In other words, typically that means that the seller is going to finance the purchase under a conditional sales contract. So if they will take that, then you check that. FHA, you want to explain to them, what does FHA mean? If it's a condo, you need to make sure the condo is FHA approved before you check this box. But if they're willing to take FHA financing and it's not a condo, or it is a condo that's approved for FHA, then you can check that. And then will they take VA financing? And again, you want to explain to them what VA financing is and anything regarding that. And then if there's any other terms of sale that they would accept, then you put that in here. You click this, and then you fill this out. Now, if you're not going to fill this out, you click in it and you put NA in there. That way it's clear that this is not being used. Okay. Then there's a line here. Seller agrees to pay costs associated with financing not to exceed dollars. It puts dollars in there. So you could put the amount of costs that the seller's willing to accept, or you could put in here zero, okay, $0, okay, meaning that they're not agreeing to pay any costs, or you could put NA in there, in that again they're not agreeing to pay any costs. Okay, so zero or not applicable, NA would work in that place. Okay.
What about where they don't know?
Pardon? I heard a question.
Yes, what they don't know, because everything depends of the offer that they get, you know?
Well, that's true. And again, you want to discuss this in advance, and they can tell you that, yeah, they're willing to pay some costs. If they are, then you want to find out, okay, what's the maximum that you would be willing to pay? And if they're willing to pay $5,000 or $4,000, then you put a number in here. So if they're willing to pay something, you could also put in here, another way that you could do this is you could put in here negotiable.
Okay, I like that better.
Okay,
Because
so
you
you
don't
could
know,
put
did you get
you
an
could put
offer?
in here a dollar amount or negotiable. Okay, that you could put that in there. That way they've said, hey, I'm willing to negotiate depending on the sale price. Okay, so then put in there negotiable.
Voy a mover mi carro, porque no.
Okay. I'm going to send this out to you all once this is completed, which won't be this week because we're almost out of time. So let me try to get through this next paragraph and then we'll stop. Property offered for sale. The above list price includes the property together with any existing permanent improvements and fixtures attached, unless leased or excluded, including but not limited to electrical and or gas fixtures. Okay, so all the electrical fixtures, gas fixtures, and center are included. Heating and central air conditioning equipment and all attachments thereto, built-in kitchen equipment, sump pumps, water softener, water purifier, fireplace inserts, gas logs and grates, central vacuum equipment, window shades, blinds, curtain rods, drapery poles and fixtures, ceiling fans and light fixtures, towel racks and bars, storm doors, windows, awnings, TV antennas, wall mounts, satellite dishes, storage barns, all landscaping, mailbox, garage door openers with controls, and the following. Okay, so this is telling you that there's additional things that are included. If applicable, any smart home devices should be addressed in this paragraph. So do they have a Ring doorbell? Do they have a special kind of a furnace thermostat? Those kinds of things, smart home features, they're addressed in here. And sellers shall provide any and all access codes, passwords, or any other information required to operate such devices if included. So here's where you put in appliances that are included, that aren't built in. Okay, so that's what goes in there. So if the range oven is included, it goes in here. If it's built in, then that's covered up here. Okay, but if it's not built in and they could remove it, then it goes in here. Same thing with microwaves, same thing with refrigerators. Any appliances are going to stay with the home, go in here. And then down here excludes the following. So you put in here any leased items. So let's say, for instance, they have a leased water softener and they don't own it. Then that would go in here. So leased water softener, for example, or appliances that are not included. Okay, so the appliances appliances that aren't included, maybe they have a washer and dryer and that's not included, so you'd put that in here to exempt it from being included. That could also apply to a fixture or something up here, like a light fixture that has sentimental value, and they tell you, hey, we're selling this house, but we want to keep the chandelier in the dining room. In that case, you want to make sure that you exempt that up here. I usually tell them the best thing to do is remove it, because the last thing that you want to do is have to turn down a buyer who wants to buy that. And so it's best if it's not even there so they can't see it. If you're going to take it with you, take it down now and replace it. That way you don't have to worry about exempting it in here. Okay. And then seller shall remove all debris. By the way, if nothing's excluded, then NA goes in here. And if nothing's included up here, NA goes in there to show that you didn't just forget to fill that in. Nothing is going in there. So always, if something's not being used, put NA in there. Okay. Then down here, it says seller shall remove all debris and personal property not included in the sale. Now, this is part of the contract. So if the buyer buys this house and they go there after closing and the garage is full of junk and old lawnmowers and car parts and all that kind of stuff, guess what? The seller has violated the purchase agreement, because that's not included in the sale and they shall remove it. Now, if they include it in the sale up here, car parts and lawnmowers that are in the garage are included, then they're fine to leave those there. Okay, so you just need to read what it says here. Any existing improvements and fixtures permanently installed and in fixed which sellers does not want included in the sale shall be removed by seller prior to the effective date of this listing and replaced with an appropriate substitute if applicable. So they've actually put language in here that basically says, hey, if you're going to remove the light fixture, you have to do it before you list the property. Right here it says that. Okay, it's to be removed by seller prior to the effective date of this listing and replaced with an appropriate substitute. In other words, they have to present a true picture of the property. Okay, we're going to stop there. We'll start with exclusive listing next time, and we'll work on through our way on through the purchase agreement so that you know what all of these things are. One other thing I want to point out is at the bottom of each page, make sure it has the street, the city name, and the zip in here. Make sure the property address is correct, and make sure that when you have this signed, that the seller initials at the bottom here each page of the listing contract. If you send it out for digital signature, drag the little icon over when you're filling this out to be signed digitally. You can drag it over for them to initial the bottom of each page. Also, if there's something unusual up here, you could even have them initial that by dragging an initial over and having them initial. So you always want to make sure that they've initialed every page. That way, later on, they can't say, well, I didn't know that least water softener, I needed to tell them that wasn't included. Well, right here, you initialed that you saw this. Okay, so that's what a lawyer is going to say. So this is to protect you and also to protect the seller to make sure that you've gone through this every part of this purchase agreement with them. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to stop my share and stop the recording.